It's a great question. I don't know who I would be in Age of Sigmar. Probably like an Eshin assassin. That's what I think I'd be. Who would you be?
Who would I be if I could choose to be anybody in Age of Sigmar?
Yeah.
Oh
Not
man.
choose to be. Who are you? Like
Well,
very
I'm a
different.
way watcher, so I'm kind of like creeping around in the woods, and then I've been pushed off to legends. That's it, shooting my bow and arrow. But anyway, we're live, aren't we,
We're
Rob?
live. Hello, welcome to the Honest Wargamer, and welcome to the Age of Sigmar Stat Center this Monday on the 3rd of whatever the month is, 2021. Hello, everyone. I think it's May. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Rob, and I'm joined by Mr. Owen Jackson. Owen, fans emotes in the chat, please. Owen, how are you? Are you well?
Yeah, great. Yeah, really good. Nice, relaxing, long weekend. Lots of Warhammer. I was telling you about how I'm spending 3 to 4 hours per base that I'm creating at the moment. So having a wonderful hobby journey. Monday. Yeah, I'm good. How are you, man? You all right?
I'm really good. I'm really, really good. I want to thank everyone in the chat for joining us live. I want to thank Mac Readiness for resubscribing, Inferno Storms for resubscribing. You're all great people. Spleen Thief for resubscribing. I want to start the show off with a shout out at the top of the show, if that's okay. So today's show, we're going to be looking at the results from the event at the weekend, because we had a singular event. I think we only had a singular event at the weekend, or at least a big ticket event at the weekend. So me and Owen are going to be discussing that. We're also going to be looking at, if you guys joined us last week to look at the stats, we're also going to be looking at more of the stats. We've had 14 tournaments inputted now. And I just want to thank the team for doing that since last week, because it's been a real uptick. So I want to thank Ziggy, Joe Cryer, Math Mallow, Intern Matt, Pete Pratt, Donal, Colonel Cabbage, James, Tristan, Pask, and of course I want to thank LLV for being the giant whose shoulder we stood upon to get here. So that's really exciting. And I've got some really cool stuff. Number 7 will surprise you. Owen, who is Osiark Bone Reaper's worst competitive matchup, according to the data set that we have at the moment?
Siege.
Interesting. Wrong. But more on that later. Yeah, Osiark Bone Reapers. More on that later. We'll see who that is. But yeah, really good. Thanks to everyone for joining us live. Obviously, thanks to all the hooligans over on YouTube. Thanks to everyone on Patreon. Literally couldn't live without you. You're all brilliant. And thanks to everyone on the podcast. You guys stay hydrated, you gorgeous, gorgeous people. So hello everyone. Coral Dawn, Tristan, Warhammer Rob, Prop Joe, Tom Dix, Jen Smorgan. Let's get into it. Owen, let's talk about the weekend, shall we?
Yeah, what specific do you want to? I had on Saturday. I had tuna sandwich for lunch. Is that the information? That isn't the information we're going to talk about, is it? We want to talk about Warhammer.
Tuna sandwich.
I know,
Ooh.
big energy.
But my question is, because I know tuna are getting smaller worldwide, do the tuna sandwiches get smaller?
Yes, yeah, I'm down to like no crusts and like a triangle around about this big. It's like I'm at some sort of like industry event and they're all being given away for free.
Wafer thin cucumber, almost no cucumber.
Oh yeah, I mean, why would you even bother with cucumber? Anyway, we're not. I told you earlier, I was like, Rob, I need to finish pretty much close to 1, and then here I am bollocking on about tuna sandwiches. No, we had some Warhammer tournaments at the weekend, didn't we? We had the big one. Was the next in the series that the Brishammer guys are doing over in Queensland. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think pretty big event. 60. Let me just check. Yeah, about 60 players. So five games. So like a proper 2-dayer. We're gonna talk about all the different lists and the bits and bobs that came out of that, right? That's the one.
Yeah, and then after that, I'm gonna look through some stats information for you guys, and Owen's gonna react to it, and we're gonna have a good time. Thanks to Forgive for resubscribing, big love to you. 3 months pog. Thanks to Shelf Loathing for resubscribing as low. Someone asking whether or not you did have sweet corn and onion in with the tuna, or you just raw dogged a tuna sandwich.
No, so wafer thin cucumber. And then, raw onion for the win. And a touch of black pepper, a little bit of lemon juice, and some granary bread. That's me.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Very impressive. I'd just like to point out very quickly that when I was 19 and not smart, so very much like now, I had a George Foreman grill, like I think everyone did at that point. Didn't have any food in the house, don't know why. I decided to try and, I'd seen, TV shows where you make a meat patty. So you get like meat, ground beef, and you kind of turn it into... I just thought if I just got loads of tuna and pressed it together really hard, it would somehow grill into a tuna burger. That doesn't work. Just in case anyone at home is got a can of tuna and is looking at their George Foreman and is asking themselves right now that question, can I make this dream happen? The answer is no. Can't make a tuna burger. Just like to point out. But let's move on, Owen, because I don't want to talk about that anymore.
I'm sorry I took us there. I'm really sorry. But anyway...
Uh,
Little bit of adjacency didn't hurt anybody, did it, Rob?
Never hurt anyone at all. Right, okay, so yeah, Brishammer Chaotic, 59 players over in Brisbane, Queensland. Big shout out to those guys. They've also sold out their Brishammer team tournament in under, I think it was in under 2 minutes. They sold all 120 places for their team, 4-man team tournament format over there. It's a bit of I think it's like one of the big ticket items that they have. Me and Nathan were going to travel over there once. It was going to be really, really sweet, but obviously COVID kicked in. And I think they have 16, 18 teams on the waiting list, which is just wild. A bit of international travel as well. I think some of the Kiwis are flying down for it, so it's a really exciting time. So big shout out to those guys. A lot of terrain to make. Big love to you. This event though, they played through Starstrike, Total Conquest, and After the Heart, Scorched Earth, which they retconned to 2 VP burns and focal points. Owen, what else happened at the event? What else was going on there?
What else was going on was so I managed to get hold of the pack. One of the players sent me that, which was great. So thanks to Simon for sending me that. So yeah, it was 2.5 hour rounds, Rob. So back, that whole thing about 3-hour rounds and TTS trying to get people to play within 3 hours. We're back to that hard mode 2.5, 2.5 hour rounds with the complexity of the game is pretty tight, but good on them. And they were playing auxiliary objectives in the tournament, so you had 2 per round that were sort of specified, and you could attempt those. But then one big thing which jumped out, and they like to do this a lot in Australia, is that they had the whole event in a specific realm, and it was the realm of Shadow, Rob. So you had the cute little teleport once per game. But then I think the most pressing or the most interesting thing about that is that all terrain was overgrown. So really good. You can hide your characters, create lanes.
Really, really, really clever. Basically, a blocked line of sight, board wide. So lots of terrain. I looked at some of the terrain. There was on some boards there was quite a bit. There was one. I think I was looking at Simon Hall's game for some reason, and they were playing. Maybe they're playing Total Conquest, and there were no lanes in between that. But there was something like opposite versus deployment versus deployment. There was some terrain. I think was good. I think it's a really smart play by the TOs to try and have some sort of positive effect. You obviously know that I'm writing a terrain pack at the minute, and that's one of the key elements that's going in there as well. So I think it's excellent work by the TOs, taking advantage of the current rule set to make it so that their games are more enjoyable for the players. I think excellent. And whether or not it skews the results, maybe not. We'll have to kind of get some anecdotal information from some of the players later on, because obviously this just happened yesterday. But I think excellent choice by the TOs to do so. 2.5 hour rounds though. That's that Queensland work ethic is what that is. Yeah, right. Or more importantly, 2.5 hours at the table means an extra 15 minutes at the bar.
I think that's probably the real story there. It's not about getting it all done, to be efficient and make sure that everyone has a really good game. It's all about that bar time, isn't it? It's all about getting to that. Get those VBs in them or whatever they're drinking. One clarification actually that Tomb King Tristan flagged that the point still stands on the team tournament, but I think those are the Runax guys, not the Brishammer guys. So it's another gaming group that are putting on that big team tournament.
Yeah, they're all mates. It's all I don't want to say it's all.
Oh, okay, my bad. Okay, yeah. So yeah, there was looking at the meta overall. I've had to cross. They didn't have all the information in one source. I've been having to gather everything together. But by the looks of it, you had the usual trend, Rob, where you had your high amounts of order and chaos armies, and then less for your death and destruction. So you've got 24 order armies, 17 chaos armies, 11 death, and then just the 4 destruction. So maybe that idea that the Aussies love running their destruction armies, maybe that is a sort of a generalization, because we just had the 4 this weekend.
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting, because I know we're going to talk about Dino, who came in 5th place with his Sinesh, but he's run greenskins before. There's a general kind of big vibe up there for running counter meta and off meta stuff. Generally, is what we tend to see. So yeah, very, very, very interesting that we didn't see a lot of destruction armies play, but maybe a lot of people just pushing the boat out. There were some very, very strong armies, and there were some armies that were decidedly different, and there were some armies that were very on the nose. So I think it was really, really good, mix up. But I think that's going to be the trend generally, right? Destruction haven't had a book in a good while. But Order have had loads. They've had loads of updates. Broken Realms has given them loads of updates as well. So Order and Chaos are going to be those things that are in people's minds at the moment. So I wouldn't be surprised seeing the uptick in those realistically. And it kind of marries with the meta stats as well. But we'll get into that in a bit.
Yeah. Effectively, a lot of what I've been looking at, a lot of what we have been looking at over the last year has been TTS, tabletop simulator tournaments. But the same trends tend to prevail in terms of, Order and Chaos being the most heavily represented factions, Grand Alliances. And then, looking at it overall, we had some interesting results. I mean, one thing to touch on, because there was a really good photo on Twitter, I'm sure you saw it, Rob, with a load of Archaeons all lined up, I don't know, like bar ladies at Coyote Ugly or something. They're all lined up, all with slightly different paint jobs. But yeah, so again, Archaon, we had, I'm sure people are a bit sick of us talking about Archaon in his different forms, but we had a fair amount. It looks like they weren't quite the 10. I think there were 10 in the photo, but I think around about 2, 4, 6, looks like 7 Archaon lists. So yeah, they went from a variety of finishes. They went 1 and 4 all the way to 4 wins and a draw. He's definitely not put him on the table and win. You still have to build the list around him. And then, I'm sure people often ask, what was the top, this faction, that faction? So looking at the big bads, Seraphon, Idoneth, and Daughters. Seraphon, the top finish was 3 wins, a draw, and a loss. Top Idoneth was 3 wins, 2 losses, and the top Daughters was 4 wins and a loss. Even though they weren't that heavily represented, those books still giving all of the majority of players sort of positive results. So that's kind of feel.
And I mean, like when we look at the stats overall at the minute, we all need to be like over the moon with the stats as is, as the sister game system or best game system compared to 40k, because they are up against it right now with that Drukhari release. Looking at a top 5 in a 8-round event were all the same faction. From a 40k event this weekend, just gone 178 players in the Dallas Open, and the top 6 were all the same faction. Wild numbers. So the spread of armies that you're seeing here is generally something. Even though some of the armies I feel are problematic, and they push a lot of the other armies down significantly, and numbers above 55% mean bad. That's when you're in the sin category. I still think there's a lot of room to play with a lot of different armies, and I think that's a real positive. And the Australian meta is a really fun one as well. We've talked about this before. That's not me to say it's off-piste. It's just different. Different places, they have different play styles. They also have different comps. And it's a little bit hard for you and me to try and break down just how effective that the overgrown rule is going to have been in this data set, right?
Precisely. Yeah, and I think that goes to so much of our conversations, Rob, and the conversations around Warhammer in general, and what's good or what's bad, or what's overpowered or what could be good, or what needs to change. There just seems to be, there are so many variables, so it's a bit like herding cats at the moment. You have got all this information, and we can look for trends and things, but at the same time, there's player skill, there's dice, there's the mission, there's this, there's the matchup, there's the specific pack, there's how you feel on the Sunday morning on game 4 because you're hanging out your arse. There's so many variables. It is really hard to try and
pin them down. But that's what we're here for. The insightful, wise analysis of 2 lads who just want to go disco dancing, right? That's what you guys have got from the Age of Sigmar community, and I'm taking it. Right, it's totally worthwhile. Right, let's talk about the results, Owen. You talked about the notable ones there. Who took the event out? How did it go? What did they win with?
So this was Pat Carter. That name, I don't know the Aussie scene as well as you do, but that name does seem to come up quite a bit. And he was running a Hermdar Lords of the Lodge build, but not with 40 Hearthguard. He was running it a little bit differently, with a double battalion. Let's cover it now very quickly. There's been a bit of chat on Twitter and on certain sources about how this list's illegal or that list's illegal or this is slightly wrong. And all I'm going to say is that the TOs have signed off on all these lists. And Pat's list does have a slight issue in that it should be a rune smiter, not a rune master. But I think that that's just a typo. So we're just going to carry on and give.
Yeah, worth talking about. Go to the TOs about that information. Don't go to Pat. Like he'll be talking with the TOs, and the TOs should just make a statement about it, just so it's clear, like what the situation is and what they've decided to do about it. I think that's just super fair, because that really protects the player, which is the important point in this situation. And then we can go on and talk about it. I mean, like, I wouldn't be surprised with Fire Slayers doing so well leading into it. Like, even though it's a I mean, it's a double battalion, and then it's still got a big brick of Hearthguard Berserkers, but it's different, right? Like, and he had the points. He had 50 points spare. He bought a CP with it, so like if he needed to change a character around, like he could have, and I think he could have moved it around a little bit. So like, I don't think that that's an issue. So. I think on an overgrown board where melee is more king, Fire Slayers become very scary, I would say. I mean, they're already scary.
Yeah, and he has. He's also got the shooters in there as well, which are really good against monsters, if I'm not mistaken. So he's got the. So the list is it's Hermdar. He then has a double battalion. So he's got Lords of the Lodge, which you see all the time. So that's your 20 Hearthguard Berserkers, and then I believe it's the rest of the heroes: Battlesmith, Rune Master, Rune Father. And then he's got then a Forged Brethren. So that's 2 units of 5 Auric Hearthguard and a unit of 10 along with the Rune Smiter. So that's where the typo is, because it should be a Smiter, not a Master. And then he's got 2 units of 10 Volkite Berserkers with War Picks and Sling Shields. The 20 Hearthguard have the Broad Axes for the rend and the 2 damage. And then he's 1950, so he's got a nice big fat Triumph bid there as well. So it's 2 drop, so he's going to be able to determine, the choice of first turn a lot. There's some cute things, like I didn't know do you know what the Salamander Cloak does, Rob?
I don't. Please let me know.
Never come up, so I just had a quick look, and it's not like in the Sylvaneth book where you get like a 5-up shrug against mortal wounds. No, it's good. It's a 5-up DPR.
You keep that rage burning, Owen. You burn more fire on that rage fire. That's fine with me.
Yeah, so it's the Salamander Cloak gives that Rune Master. He gives him a 5-up DPR against wounds and mortal wounds, which is great. Got to keep those little characters alive. But yeah, it's got all the usual bits that you'd expect. So it has the Nulcidian icon to give the 4-up spell ignore. But can we ever talk about Volkite Berserkers, Rob? I think they're really good.
Okay, talk to me about why.
Just 140 points for 20 wounds straight off the bat is pretty good, right?
Very good.
And like, it's not like in a lot of lists. So he could leave his little 5s of Hearthguard at the back to hold things, but his Auric Hearthguard. But like 10 Volkites on a home objective, you're not going to just be able to teleport a little unit or throw a little, like, you're not going to be able to teleport a unit of Shadowstalkers over and just take that off. Like, they are actually genuine good backfield objective holders. You can leave 10 on your home on Battle for the Pass or Border War, and they will have a really good chance of fighting off whatever comes at them. Because, they've got the fight on death. I believe the War Picks are the rend, so they've all got -1 rend. I know that everybody talks about Hearthguard. I just think for 140 points, 10 Volkites is super solid.
I would agree with you.
And obviously in Hermdar, everything's Battle Shock immune when it's wholly within 12 of an objective, right? So it's not worrying about, things running off.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think all of the elements of the fight, because like they have the same stat line, right? 2 wounds, and you can make them pretty tanky. Ultimately, is kind of like the get go on that situation, and like they don't take up quite as much board space when they are like in 5s for controlling those back objectives, like something like, I don't know, a 10-man unit of something, because you can screen out a little bit more better against teleports. But when the teleporting unit does come in to try to take the objective, they're in a tough spot because those boys will slap back like really hard, and that's a very, they're not deck chairing, they're guard dogging. That's what they're doing. Like they're aggressive on that objective. They're not just hanging out there. So I agree. I think that they're really good. I think there's a lot of room to play around with really the Fire Slayers, but I think ultimately with the battalion and also the sub faction, so strike twice and strike first, that combination is just so aggressive that we see it time and time again. But ultimately, I think you can play around a load there, and I think Pat's done a great job of doing so. And like and doing that, which is great. Like, I think that's, it's a good build. I also love that, like, the Overgrown may have had some effect. I'm interested as to whether or not it has, because he doesn't need any long range sort of damage to do the work, right?
No, and I mean, I think one thing to bear in mind as well with his list here is he obviously the missions were announced in advance. So round 5 was focal points. So often you think to yourself, okay, you know that you're going to, if you are going to do well and you've got aspirations, you want to be on the top tables round 5. So with focal points, obviously you get extra points for monsters. So you would think that certain players would be factoring in large monsters. So he's gone for the anti-monster, the build where he's got his 10 Hearthguard, the Oryx, which I believe they do flat 2 damage against monsters, and then you've got the ability to make them -1 to hit with some sort of hot molten lava vibes, I think, at the end of the round. So he's teched for that a little bit, I think. And then, 20 Hearthguard, going first and going twice is still one of the scariest combat threats in the game. So,
and he was up against Blazercorn in that, yeah.
Yeah, so his path to victory then, if I just jump back
can I just quickly throw out that Fire Slayers have got a 56% win rate on focal points. They don't... They don't, like, I mean, I agree with you about everything when we talk about monsters and how they get the bonus points, but it's a battle plan that fights in the middle, and the Fire Slayers are just like licking their lips. They're like, let's go, let's tussle up our naked asses and run into the middle, boys. Yeah, that's what they do. So I think it kind of makes sense that they at least do a little bit like above average. Fire Slayers actually your best battle plans, apparently, according to our data sets, and some of these are like not particularly high, but Blade's Edge, 83% win rate on Blade's Edge. Star Strike, they do really well as well, which is just wild. So in our data sets, there's quite a few positive. They struggle on forcing the hand and total commitment, and battle for the pass, where they have to. And there's a very good kind of conversation between the difference between focal points and battle for the pass. Battle for the pass, there isn't a central objective, so you have to split from the center wide, as opposed to playing centrally in focal points, where it's wide into a center. If that makes sense. Like, so I could see why there's a significant difference between the two there.
Yeah, it'll be a similar thing to like when I like playing my Petrifex army, where everything is based around a hero cabal, sort of where it's all wholly within 12 off that hero. And the same thing happens with the -1 to wound, which comes off the Rune Father normally. So the -1 to wound bubble. There's a number of auras within this which all work off the same ranges, and it means that you end up having to keep your army quite compact. Obviously, he can tunnel up with the Smiter, so he can put 20 Hearthguard in somebody's face. But the rest of the army then will sort of all be quite bunkered. So but saying that, Rob, he did beat. So I can tell you what the armies he beat on which battle plans, if you're interested.
I'd love to know.
Feed into that. So. He beat Simon Hall's Harkuron list, the Cities of Sigmar list in round 1. That was on Star Strike.
Yeah, we should quickly. We'll come back to that. You go through this, and then we'll come back.
Round 2, he beat Nighthorn on Total Conquest. Then a Keltnar, Daughters of Cain list on Knife to the Heart. He beat Cities of Sigmar, Hallowheart on Scorched Earth. And then Blades of Khorne on Focal Points. So... yeah, quite an interesting run there. Cities, Nighthaunt, Daughters, Cities, and then Blades of Khorne.
I mean, can we really shout out the Nighthaunt player, get him through round 1 on a win? Like, that's key. That's just...
Hey, man, I lost against Nighthaunt yesterday. I think they were actually pretty good,
I mean, they've got all of the components to be good. They ignore Rend, they whole army flies, they have a deep strike available to them. Like, it's actually really interesting why they don't do well. Like, there's a fascinating case study about, like, what's wrong with Nighthaunt that they've never done, arguably, as, like, they've got core components where if I was like, hey, do you want all your units to fly over? And you'd be like, yes, I do. Like, I super want that, like, all the time.
I think it's the low wounds on the unsurvivable heroes, and I actually think it's the output. I don't think they do enough.
Yes, I think...
no good and -2 Rend outside of the Banshees. I just don't think Grims and Blade Guys punch hard enough in the modern world, personally.
Well, it's because they're ghosts. They're really relics of another world. Can I just shout out Tokyo Nift in the chat, who's asked, "Hi, I'm new to the hobby. Are all the people involved as devastatingly as attractive as these two?" You'd be right. You'd be right. If anything, me and Owen are kind of beat with the ugly stick on this. If you get into Age of Sigmar, oh god, ladies and gentlemen of beauty and charm is what I think. So Tokyo Nift, thanks for that. Also, thanks to Eric Sorbanen for resubscribing. Very much appreciate you. It says Bone Splitters OP with that. Right, anyway, yeah, really good. Should we just talk about some of the other, just being conscious of time, should we quickly talk about some of the other stuff that's in there? So notable results, as you've talked about, was Simon Hall's Hark You On list. Oh, wait, hold on, I missed 2 and 3, right?
Yeah, so we've got the runner-up is just above that in my notes. So, yeah.
But these are all in the 4-1 bracket, right?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so Ryan Hooper with a really nice big war list. That looked very similar to we watched recently in the coverage. We saw the weekend of the Yeti meta. The list where Stuart played into Wurzel with the big war, and Wurzel had the 2 big bricks of 30 Savage Orcs, and then the Rogue Idol, and then he had like boars and things like that. Well, Ryan's list is a little more. He's got the 2 blocks of 30, and he has got a Rogue Idol, but then he's got 6 pigs in there as well, and some Savage Big Stabbers. So he's gone a little bit less on the swamp side, and he's got those. I always look for it now. You want 3 threats, right? So he's got 2 War Dogs, I believe, so he can get the flying Rogue Idol. But yeah, you've got the pig torpedo, and then you've got the big Rogue Idol to fly in, and then the Savage Big Stabbers, again excellent into monsters. So yeah, Ryan did really well. I believe it's a 4-1 there for Ryan. And then a Zinch build, a Zinch Archaon in 3rd place. Rob, this was Host Duplicitous, so no retreat build, I believe. Let me double check that, actually. I just want to check Zach's list very quickly. There were a lot of Zinch lists. I'm 99% sure it was a Zinch Archaon. But that was the podium.
While you're answering that question, while you're looking for that quickly, I'm just going to say, Tom B asks, is there any use for old Wanderers models anymore? Do they get played competitively in any way? Not really. However, you can just always use them as something else, right? Cities of Sigmar generally do quite well with crossbowmen and handgunners, and they're very takeable in that. You could use them as that like all day long. I think that'd be fine, and it would fit the theme really well. You could put it in Living City if you wanted. Don't have to put it in Living City. Just paint it a different colour. Enjoy yourself. Like, that's a really important point. Big shout out to Darren Watson, always. What was it, Owen? Did I give you enough time? Did I vamp good? It
was really good. I found it. I got Grizzhammer, but I ended up finding the old like Grizzhammer Destruction, the previous event. So give me 1 second. I've got it. Here we go. This is great telly. So let's have a look through all the chaos lists. So it was Zach. I'm pretty sure it was an Archaon in host. Duplicitous. I'm scrolling through. Here we go. Yes, Archaon, Chaos Sorcerer Lord, Kairos Fate Weaver, 5 Chaos Warriors, 2x10 pinks, Geminids, Spell Portal Palisade, 69 wounds. Appreciate you very much, Zach Blair. What a legend. I mean, 69 wounds, Rob. Jeez, that's all hero. That's hero.
So
hammer,
thin
right?
on the ground, but it's not, right. It's not 69 wounds because immediately it's more wounds on the board straight. But yeah.
It's actually, I can tell you exactly what it is, Rob, because it's 149 wounds, including the pinks, and when they split, and then screamers are another 3 wounds each, so 18. Yeah. So yeah, it's actually 167 wounds, which is above average. So yeah.
I'd start every game like that. They'd be like, I've only got 69 wounds, so first turn's a bit fragile, and then someone would be like, fucking rubbing the hands. I'm going in. Buff up the pigs. Let's go. You're like, Jace Harper says, I want to start a new army. Can you tell me what the best cavalry unit in the game is? I think it really depends on the different armies, of course, but there's 2 answers. There's a variety of good options. Dawn Riders are brilliant. Rue Riders are great. There's a bunch of stuff. But truthfully, it's obviously Pistolators from Cities of Sigmar. 1, because they've got some great rules, but number 2, because they're fugly, and which is brilliant. So you could spend your money right now on some glorious looking wind chargers, or can I interest you in some beat up old men who look like they're from the TV show Sharp? Your choice. Owen, which one would you go for?
Always sharp all the way, man. I just want to paint some of those pantaloons. Yeah, exactly. If the kit hasn't got a number of cod pieces, I can paint in whatever colours I want. I'm not interested. All
Agreed.
seriousness, though, Rob, I reckon. What do you reckon? Death Riders, Kavalos Death Riders, excellent.
They're good. I just don't know if they play into the strengths of that army particularly. I think Wind Chargers feel like the cavalry at the moment. I think Dawn Riders are incredible as well.
I mean,
Like, I know you're big into the Death Riders.
I am. I'm all, but then again, I also like Drakespawn Knights. So you know,
But
yeah.
I mean, if we're talking best cavalry, it goes back
Wild
to what was in
Riders
Owen's
with
sandwich
shields.
earlier. It was a tuna fish. It's a bloody eel with something to ride, or a shark, or a turtle.
I don't know. I think that we can't, if it doesn't actually connect with the land whilst it moves, it's not cavalry. Obviously, Smorgan says hex wraiths because that's what But yeah, gore grunters. I think gore grunters. Taking your point about playing into the play style and synergizing and being relatively cheap to buy. I'm going to say gore grunters because everyone who plays gore grunters seems to have a fucking great time as well.
They do, because they're insane. Let's talk about Simon Hall's list in fourth place with Harkuron. Now, there's a caveat to that in that Simon, being a very studious person who's been on the show several times, even runs a show on he's got a YouTube channel which you can go check out, where he talks about Cities of Sigmar exclusively. He loves Cities of Sigmar, likes the playability and how they move around. So there's some very specific wording that allows you to take 4-to-1 Daughters of Cain units inside a Harkuron army. Specifically, though, unlike Living City, where you're allowed to do Sylvaneth, or Tempest Eye, where you can do Dwarden, this doesn't. Or it's KO, sorry. Or Tempest Eye is KO, yeah. This doesn't have a restriction on you not being then able to ally in a Daughters of Cain unit as well, because all Cities of Sigmar can ally anyone in. So there's some fun rules as written, like chicanery there, and also like he's even taken Marathi as an ally, I think, and swapping that around to do some super fun janky stuff. So that's just someone like list writing inside of the rules, where the rules really shouldn't be pointed out. And I think really knowing Simon, it would be to point out that this is the fact, as opposed to because like no one like if someone's saying to me, "Hey Rob, someone's built an abusive Harkuron army," I'd probably chuckle. Like I'd be like, "I'm sure it's a good one." But like abusive would be no. But he did do really well with it, right? He went 4-1, like with a bunch of different stuff, like which I thought was fascinating. I don't know what you thought.
Yeah, and I mean he only lost to Pat in game one, so he lost to the eventual winner. But yeah, the way that he's doing it is he is essentially 1 in 4 Daughters of Cain. That gives him he's got 12 units, so he's got a Bloodbrack Shrine, Marathi Cain, and the Bloodstalkers. They count as the 3 1 in 4s, so there's 12 units. And then he's then taking the Shadow Queen as an ally at 390. So it's the way that it's a manipulative way. But somebody else has pointed out you could do the same thing with Barrack Thring. You could take 40 Hearthguard in Barrack Thring if you wanted to, because you could take 20 and the Smiter as the 1 in 4, and then you can then add on another 20 as your allies. So, there's the TO signed off on it. So, and he's obviously explained to his opponents. So good on him.
And like Pete pointed out in the chat, really the trick there is the armor save spell, which basically is a spell that removes the armor save. You do that through the endless spell portal. The spell portal, which gives you more range on that spell. Remove an armor save, and then use Marathi to allow a unit of snake shooters to shoot twice. So I mean, they've got Ren, but it doesn't matter when you've got 0 armor save. Really clever combination of stuff. Really, really enjoyed looking at that list. I think it's really, really good. We'll include a link to it in the show notes, and I'm sure Simon will do a video on it as well. So you guys should go check it out, because I think it's really clever. I think we've seen people try to use that before. It's actually a nice adaptation, moving on from what we've seen before, where people tried to use this already, but normally they would take something like Dark Shards, because there was a volume of shots. But really, like already, Owen, you and me have talked about just the competency of the the Bloodstalkers. Or is it Bloodstalkers or Bloodsisters? I think it's the Stalkers.
It's the Stalkers. Stalkers shoot, sisters fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And the thing I like about that is that I've played against these sort of cities lists. Obviously, what were they? Anvil Guard lists, which had access to the same spell lore effectively. And, you'd have 40 Dark Shards on us. Because one cute thing with the Sorceress is that she allows the Dark Shards to run and shoot, or basically allows a Darkling Coven's unit to run and shoot or run and charge. But if you don't get the spell off, Dark Shards don't do anything. Whereas if you don't get the spell off, Bloodstalkers can still do a hell of a lot. So, with the mortal wounds and, the 3 Scourge Runner Chariots, they're giving him some cheeky mortal wounds and they've got decent range. So he's threatening heroes, he's threatening big blocks, even without the spell. And then if he does get the spell off, then he has a wonderful time. And he's got a nice 1970 Triumph bid. You re-roll hits on those Stalkers and they shoot twice. Obviously, they were probably only re-roll hits for one phase, to be fair. But even so, getting re-roll hits on the Stalkers is going to be spicy. And then he's got lots of, good objective playing units like the 2 units of Shadow Warriors. It's cool, right? It's creative, it's interesting. And as you said, Simon and his channel, it's Simon's Order Academy for anyone who's looking to learn. And yeah, he's pretty much the sort of Cities of Sigmar kind of professor at this stage. So he's always looking to try and find something interesting within the book. And I mean, I think the last tournament he played Greywater Fastness. The tournament before that, he was probably playing Hallowheart. So he's in and around the whole book, getting results. So
there we go. Yeah, no, looked honestly really exciting. Like you say, I think one of the things like Angle is saying in the chat, if you do get Vitriolic Spray off, which MJ Pegasus is also saying, which is the spell we're talking about, then you're having a fun time. It must be awful when all of a sudden someone's like, "No, I'm safe on you," and you're like, "What?" To watch your nails unit go from I'm going to roll some armor saves to just being in their pants is hilarious. So yeah, I think that's really, really good. Really, really good, really clever. We need to shout out Dino as well, doing an amazing job on 4-1 with Sanesh. Really good. He takes a bunch of different lists all the time. Doesn't really give a fuck about I think what anyone thinks about what he runs his lists, which I think is brilliant. And an excellent result there with new Sanesh, with Fiends. Glottos is in there as well. So there's that double -2 in a bubble, which I think is interesting, and really plays well into a game where there's a lot of obscuring. Shooting generally would be quite, I think, because the -1 to hit with the Fiends and the -1 to hit from Glottos all are within a 12-inch bubble. The Fiends are in melee, sorry, and the 12 inches from Glottos. So there's a double -1 stack there if you get into them in melee. But if you just shoot them from outside of 12 inches, they're just in their pants, on a 5-up save on the Fiends. So I think that's an excellent play from Dean there.
I did
mixing that together.
I did see a little thing. He put a couple of bits on Twitter about some of the ways that he'd played it, actually, which was interesting. So he was saying that because it's Lurid Haze and he can redeploy
D3 units.
Redeploy D3 units. He was saying that he only ever redeploys the mask, and then what the mask does is it charge tags and then uses the no pile-ins for the new Locus, and then with a 4-up after damage save on the mask. Because I've played against the mask, it's a horrible thing to try and kill. He was using that to sort of tag and hold in place, and then also using it to summon in behind. He's obviously got a very specific way that he's running that, because on the face of it, it doesn't look like apart from the debuffs and stuff, it doesn't look fantastic, does it, Rob? Without, you know what I mean? So it's one of those ones where he's obviously, had to play well to get those wins. I would be intrigued.
Although smart play allying in the flamers as well, instead of going for the shooters that he's already got. We saw that already, and I think that there's Dave Kerr. I think Dino and Dave Kerr know each other quite well. Dave Kerr had already over in Australia been running the Slaves to Darkness Play Touch Warband, but we'd seen him already allying in flamers and seeing how effective they were. So I think that any chaos, really, they're looking for that long-range shooting or to have a conversation in the long-range shooting, because I would say that the list really lacks any sort of way to deal with hordes. And obviously what's great about the Exalted or just regular flamers is they get bonuses against number of models in a unit. So they're a nice piece. They're a nice answer anyway, because I think he had 2 Exalteds, right? And they've got the Rend on them. Which is really nice. But we saw Dave take the bricks of 6 flamers as allies. So I think that's just a clever play to put him in there and to put something into the army that does not exist in the army. You don't have any viable shooting options inside the army. So I think that's really, really clever. And I think all round would have been played really well, played really aggressively, and also really played into what I think the Obscuring might have done to the game setup. So an excellent result, and obviously quite surprising, because I don't really think that they should be up that high. So I think that's really down to Dino's skill level as opposed to what the army can put together. But still a well-designed list, ultimately.
Yeah, and I think I would take 2 Exalted Flamers over 20 or 22 Blissbarb. So hold on, 22 Blissbarb archers are 320 points.
Yeah.
whereas 2 Exalteds are 200. And like you say, your point on the overgrown, obviously those Exalteds fly, don't they? So they get over the overgrown.
They do.
So, those flying shooting units. I mean, you see Exalteds pop up everywhere. I know that Daniil at the moment is running a 1 unit of 6 at the moment in Change Host, which is pretty scary because they do only hit on 4s, right? It's 4s and 3s, rend 1d3 damage.
Unless they're shooting at models with 10 or more.
And then they get that sweet +1. Okay, so they're pretty much guaranteed. They're great little depravity creators, then, aren't they? Fast, and they can zip around, and yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, fair play. And we can't not talk about Matt Campbell going 4-1 with Blades of Corn, Rob, and coming in 7th.
Big shout to him. He's never given up that Corn army.
No, and I mean he was 4-0 going into round 5. And he was crushing it. I think I'm pretty sure that he only lost to Pat on sort of table 1 game 5. I'm pretty sure of that. I will have to triple check that, but I think that was his only loss, and that was with a big sort of bloodthirster build, 2-drop Tyrants of Blood and Murder Host mixture. So loads of flesh hounds, really good in the meta. Loads of unbinds. The Wrath of Corn's got an unbind at +2, and then he's got tyrants. He actually put incandescent Rageblade, Rob, on the Boom Thirster. So basically, if he keys it up nicely, what he'll do is he'll go he'll go +1 to hit from the Slaughter Priest, and then so it's hitting on 3s, and then the command ability from the Wrath of Corn is reroll all hits. So if he's hitting on 3s, rerolling all hits on 6 attacks, exploding on 6s, and then going twice, that's going to create some nice boomy moments. And he's also got the 6-inch pile-in from the Unfettered. So he literally had 1 Wrath of Corn, 1 Insensate, and 1 Unfettered. And I'd imagine he's using everything to insert that Insensate in at exactly the right time and just go... as Undead Ben was telling me the other day about, he once played and rolled 4 6s to wound and did 16 mortal wounds to everything. And, that's why us corn perverts play the game, right? That's exactly what we play the game
just for that result. And I don't blame you. Like, that's super, why would you not? Well, it looks like it was a great event. Yeah?
Totally. Yeah, man, absolutely.
Should we just fire through some of the upcoming events really quickly? And then maybe in the last 10 minutes I can just bang through some stats.
Yeah, let's do that. Perfect. Yeah. So it seems to be getting pretty busy now, both online and in real life. So we've got my little fun Thunder Tome happening this weekend. So we've got about 40 players for that with my little bit of quite serious comp. Mm-hmm. Also the same weekend. We've got the Battle for Ravenhall coming up this weekend, which is a 2-dayer. Quite a lot of the usual Aussie sort of players that you see doing well are there. Arthur, Smorgan, the 2 Joels. So there's going to be, that should be a good one. And then little thing called, don't know if you've heard of this, Rob, Super Series Genesis.
Yeah, so 23rd of May. 23rd of May, Marauders versus Legio 9. It's going to be a big Royal Rumble. Weekend after we have the next 2 matchups. So Super Series is going to just happen basically week on, week out. So we're fitting a double of round 1 into the weekend after, so the 27th and 28th, or 28th or 29th, or whatever the weekend is. And then straight into the semi-finals the week after. So the Super Series is going to just be going from the 23rd of May, and then just trying to get it all done before the end of Age of Sigmar 3 and get ourselves a Super Series champion for Age of Sigmar 3. Age of Sigmar 2, the only ones that will ever be. Obviously, more Super Series returning and ways for you guys to enter the Super Series for obviously Age of Sigmar 3 onwards. Probably won't do one until January, just because obviously we need to let the meta settle down, and also whatever happens with the game. Because you don't know what it's going to look like. But really excited. Really looking forward to it. Marauders, they got their head together. Legio got their head together. That's going to be a really tight matchup. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to all the matchups, though. So it's going to be really fun. Great to see some guys in the venue again. Great to get some gaming on. So, and you guys obviously can watch it all live on the T Sports Network. So I'll put loads of stuff out on the socials leading up to it. Don't forget the Monday before, though. That's really important. The Monday before will be the band show, which is just as exciting. So not long, we're not far away from that, 15 or so, 18 or so days or whatever it is. So yeah, keep your eyes to the ground on that one. And then we've got the New Zealand Masters 2-dayer, 22nd and 23rd of May, so same weekend, which will be really fun. And those guys, it's kind of like the Australian Masters as well, ultimately, isn't it? The New Zealand Masters, because whenever they go down south, they dominate. Is it south, east? Somewhere.
North. I think Australia is north of New Zealand, yeah, Rob.
Shit.
But that'll be Tubbs. He's a New Zealand resident, isn't he? Tubbs, AOS Tubbs.
Yeah.
Pretty sure he's a New Zealand player. So and the chap that won CanCon with Zinch recently, I'm pretty sure he was from New Zealand, right?
Magic Hands. What's his name? Yeah. I do know it, but
yeah. But anyway, good pedigree of player there. So should be some we'll try and get hold of the list for that. And then another TTS event. Pask is putting on a singles event using all the lower end books. So this is Butcher's Ditch after Butcher's Buffet and Butcher's Tribe. There's now Butcher's Ditch. So yeah, if anyone's interested in playing some TTS over the course of 6 weeks, he's got quite a few players lined up already. I'm going to definitely send links to Scrivo, okay, Rob, so we can put it in the show notes. So
yep, sure.
Yeah, if people want to sign up, they can do so through that. Yeah, busy amount of time. So you're going to blind me with lots of super cool information now, Rob.
Okay, I'm going to try. So yeah, loads of cool events. Let's see what I can do in 9 minutes. This is our plan. Right, here we go. So Age of Sigmar meta overview. So thanks again to the stats team. I thanked them earlier. So we've only got 14 events in the tank so far, and as you can see, we can break them down into like if they're 2-dayers. So we've only got 7 tournaments that are 2-dayers, but it doesn't change the numbers too much. Daughters of Cain riding at the top there. Disciples of Zinch and Seraphon, but let's just take it back to include all of the information here. Oh no, there we go. So I want all. There we go. So top of the pile, so kind of in the sin category, like we're not happy with them. Daughters of Cain and Disciples of Zinch, but put a star next to that. We're going to come back to that because I think that's really interesting. Then Seraphon IDK, Seraphon at 59, Idneth Deepkin at 58, Sons of Behemoth at 56%. That's down to like a big weekend over in Australia. Again, if we had more tournaments, I'd be surprised if that stays there, but come back to me in a year's time, and if it stays there, then I'll do some sort of like challenge as a sorry. Karajan Overlords at 54%. And then you kind of get into the midfield with Maggotkin and Nurgle, Fire Slayers, Beasts of Chaos, Safe Startness, all around the 50. Ossiarchs at 49. It all kind of goes down. I think some of the big things that we should look at, Lumineth Realm Lords, very popular army, 46%. Cities of Sigmar, 45%. Blades of Khorne at 45% as well. Stormcast Eternals, even though we saw a dominant shootcast list come out at the beginning of GHB 2021, they're down at 43%. Flesh Eater Courts fallen heavily down to 39%, but we'll do some quick breakdowns of some of this stuff. Skaven, though, 35% right at the bottom, which is, poor Skaven. Now, don't forget, that's from 108 results. Now, when we have more results, some of these numbers will change around. They'll start to average out a little bit more. Some of this is a bit spiky, but it's worth looking at. Now, the meta review, which is one of my favourite things to look at, is who's playing what. And the most popular army is Disciples of Zinch. Very, very close, right up there with 47 examples, so 7% of the meta nearly, with Lumineth in second and Seraphon in third. Ossiarch Bone Reapers, now that's what's interesting. Ossiarch Bone Reapers, Owen, the 4th most popular army, but they're down with a 49% win rate, so they're on that kind of, they're probably the most honest army out there at the moment. They're just they're just gold, which I think is interesting. And then it just gets less popular as it goes on. Some of the things to point out is Daughters of Cain more popular at the moment than Deepkin, which I think is quite interesting. Iron Jaws have dropped down. Don't forget we kind of have split up the Iron Jaws and Big War book. You could kind of lump them together. But yeah, they're generally fairly low. And you consistently get to armies that perform not as well the lower down you go. Make of that what you will. You're going to tournaments, probably the people who take the better performing armies. Where it gets really fun, let's look at some of the factions, Owen. So Daughters of Cain, this is what we're going to look at first, because they're in our top win percentage there at 64%. So if we look at Daughters of Cain here, you can see how they do. 64% win rate with 115 matches played. Let's talk about who they do well into. They do really well into Lumineth. So let me just go find Lumineth there. So they've got a 60% win rate into Lumineth. Where they don't do well, and I think this is really interesting, is into Maggotkin of Nurgle with only 25% win rate. So not doing really well there into them, which I think is fascinating.
is that definitely right? Because you've got win rate by opposition faction. So isn't that Maggotkin win 25% of their games against Lumineth?
No, I think it's the other way around. Oh no, unless I've got this wrong, in which case it's all. No, that's the right way around. I'm almost certain. Yeah, that's the right way around.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like panicking then.
No, right, I see. So basically, they win 75% of their games into Maggotkin. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. However, 64% is still very, very high. Let's all be really clear. Just because we've got Drukhari running around at like 75% in 40k, and we've had armies that have pushed 70% before, 64% isn't okay. Where it gets really interesting is let's look at the next tablet, which is great. Yeah, so this is Daughters of Cain and how they perform as an army. And you can kind of take out Keltnar, because there wasn't lots of people taking Keltnar, there was only one example, and Drychi Ganeth. Keltnar doing really well, Drychi Ganeth not doing very well, and those are little independent ones. But Calibron, 68% with Calibron.
Yeah, kind of checks out.
So really good. Versus Hagnar, which are at 60. So I think that is, yeah. So yeah, I got it right. Thanks, Ziggy. Smashed it. Go for me. So Calibron doing really well. So when we look at the 64% win rate for Daughters of Cain, actually, if you're against Calibron, it pushes more towards 70%. And there's a good conversation to have in all of these stats about, okay, your average is X, but with your performing, your good performing army, your sub-faction that's really, really good, how well does that do? And I think that kind of translates all over. There isn't much to take away really from the battle plan breakdown from Daughters of Cain. They do well into Battle for the Past, Total Conquest. They do well into everything. They struggle in Star Strike for some reason, but they're happy in Battle for the Past, Total Conquest, Border War, Blade's Edge. Like they're all 80%. Blade's Edge is 70%. Scorched is 69%. So they're generally doing well, and they're doing even better in Calibron. That's the kind of takeaway, ultimately, from Daughters of Cain, and I don't think that's going to change for any particular reason, Owen. So that's my snapfire on that. You got any thoughts?
I mean, it is interesting how, Calibron have gone from being that sort of slightly hipster pick when, like, Corey Papp was doing, just before, Broken Realms Marathi came out. Calibron was kind of, he was doing well with it then, but Hagnar was obviously your go-to for all Daughters players for a long time, right? And that seems to have switched around a touch now. The -1 to shooting and all the teleport tricks and I think super. Yeah, you look at it there; it's super solid into for the missions, and we play missions, don't we? We don't play to kill other armies; we just play missions. And having a teleport for a CP, having a spell which does a teleport, and then having inherently teleporting units is going to be awesome for for mission play. So I'm not surprised they're doing so well. I must say, I'd like to see what they're not good against.
Who,
if possible, Daughters.
Oh, sure. Let me just go back to that.
If you were looking, because obviously with them being prevalent and them being really well,
so Maggotkin and Nurgle, like I said, they've only won one out of those matches. Sylvaneth, but we could talk about that being aberrant ultimately, and that's it. Everything else, they've got a 50% win rate or above.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I think because there's a really interesting conversation if we have this conversation about. Let me just kind of fire through here, because if you have the conversation, I didn't want to jump to it, but we have it about Lumineth. But we're going to have the conversation about Lumineth by talking about Disciples of Tzeentch. Okay. So Disciples of Tzeentch, we're going to, they have an 81% win rate versus Lumineth Realm Lords. So let me just pick that. 16 examples of that, and they win 81% of the time. Huge stat. A lot of cases of that. And I guess the real question is why, fundamentally, and it has to be with seeing all the Lumineth builds we did see. Obviously, we'll see that change. We saw them play with Teclis. Teclis is big, important piece. Destiny Dice and Kairos just going to shut that down. He's like, I want to get off protection of Teclis. Cool, you're going to do one spell auto unbind, and then you opportunity cost losing 3 of those. I think also there's the output, and also whether or not they've got the output as well. Because also if we jump to Lumineth really quickly, because this is a fun little chat. Because like we said, they're one of the most popular armies. So we'll jump over to Lumineth really quickly. If I can read. Sorry about this. And have the conversation about Lumineth here. They do really badly into stuff where there's a DPS check, like we've talked about before. Maggotkin and Nurgle, 20% win rate. Let's talk about Fire Slayers. Played Fire Slayers, 33% win rate. Let's talk about Tzeentch, we've talked about them playing poorly in there. And even Sons of Behemoth, this is an interesting take, only a 40% win rate. Because, if you can block out that Sons of Behemoth army, and if you can outscore it, or, if you can kill it, but you need to be able to take all those wounds down, and they're generally not doing well, which I think is interesting. If we talk about Lumineth very quickly, and we'll just go through this very quick. I'm probably going to do a really slow, long show on this, and maybe just put on.
And this information's so rich. I'm a little bit blown away.
Yeah, I know. I get it. So let's talk about Lumineth Realm Lords, and let's look at when you run them in Sire as opposed to everything else. 53% win rate when you run them in only Sire. Zytrek 40%, and it's Ymetric and Alithia that are bringing them down 33 and 32%. So I think that's there's something interesting to take away from that. Ultimately, the Aurelian Legion, Aurelian Legion, 49% win rate. So that battalion not necessarily bringing out the win, but definitely Sire is. And then some people are taking the Aurelian Legion mainly in Sire, but sometimes taking it in Zytrek, which I think is pretty interesting. I wanted to jump over, Owen, because I kind of prepped it on the show. Osiarchs, I want to talk about that really quick, because they're a very popular army with a middling win rate. So I thought we should look at that, and that'll be really fun. Mortis Praetorians do really well, 55% win rate. It's the other, so they're only on a 49% win rate, but it's the other sub-factions that are bringing them down. Petrifex, 35%, Normeriad, 33%, and Staliac Lords, 33%. So actually, you take those away, Mortis Praetorians, pretty good, doing pretty well. 55%, you're pretty happy with that, which I think is quite interesting. But, Owen, time to guess. Final guess. Who do Osiarch Bone Reapers play badly into? 13% win rate.
13%. I'm trying to think. I mean, those Mortis Praetorian lists don't really have a great deal of output, so it's something that's going to bog them down. I mean, Fire Slayers probably just smash them off, don't they?
It's Ogre More Tribes.
There we go. Yeah. I mean, my only loss in the current Worlds tournament is to 4 Stonehorns in Ogre More Tribes. Yeah, it's great if you're building that grindy, 3-up save kind of attrition sort of build where you've got Catacross and a Liege and some skeletons and stuff. But, a couple of Stonehorns on the charge can blow up. A Stonehorn on the charge can blow up 20 Mortec. Easy peasy. So, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. People were surprised with my Thundertome thing about the fact that Ogres were in the top tier. What is the Ogre More Tribes overall win rate?
Win percentage?
Yeah,
no problem. So 48%, but I think when you look at that, and then they spike very differently into everything. So into Seraphon, they've got a 43% win rate, which is, so they don't perform just quite as well. They do a little bit better into Cities of Sigmar, which I think is interesting. Well into Flesh Eater Corpse, not well into Flesh Eater Corpse, which makes sense. Really well into Fire Slayers, which I find fascinating. But really, it's the breakdown when you look at Ogre More Tribes again, which I think is interesting. When you break out into sub-factions, Winterbite, obviously, really high, we'll ignore that. But we talk a lot about people taking Boulderhead versus Bloodgullet. I've always said Boulderhead seems better, but the stats seem to say different significantly. 53% win rate for Bloodgullet, 44% win rate for Boulderhead. Now, that doesn't mean that's definitely the facts, but it's interesting. Meat Fist, not good. Let's just talk about. Nope, don't do that. I just want to fire off one last one before we go because we've got to go. And like I say, big shout out to the stats team, and I'll do a much longer video on this. And then we've got more stuff to come in as time goes on. I'm just going to look at Cities of Sigmar really quickly because again, one of the most popular factions. Now you can kind of take Simon's Harcuron stat out of there, which is interesting. Tempest Eye 53%, Howlerheart 45%, Hammerhall 44%, Living City 39%, and then Greywater Fastness down at 33%, which I just think is a really interesting breakdown in who they play in. Hammerhallian Lancers as a battalion in Hammerhall 44%, so not doing great, but not doing terribly either. You got to remember 44 is fine, which I think is interesting. But yeah, this is as we get more tourneys, we'll have more data for this. Like I say, we'll do a big breakdown at some point in the future. I need to again thank all of the crew who've done this. So just another shout out to Ziggy, Joe Cryer, Matt Mallow, Intern Matt, Pete Pratt, Donald, Colonel Cabbage, James, Tristan and Pask, and then obviously LLV. So loads more on that. We could do a whole show and kind of have a back and forth about that, and maybe we will later in the week or whatever. But As we get more tournament data, that'll get even more interesting. I think looking at how armies perform on battle plans will be really interesting. So looking forward to it. Really fun stuff to kind of take away. But mainly, if you're playing Ogre More Tribes, you should beat the snot out of your OC Bone Reapers, mate. That's the thing to take away.
Definitely, and also as a narrative channel, I think we should really just make a touch on what Krinigit has said, and you can. It says that you can see why Marathi had no trouble beating Anvil Guard.
Absolutely. All right. I mean, I know you got to go, so thanks very much for being on the show. You got any shout outs before we head out?
I'm gonna shout out. I'll shout out Simon after the weekend. So Simon Hall. If people are interested in learning more about Cities of Sigmar, I would go and check out his YouTube channel called Simon's Order Academy. He breaks down lots of the different builds, and you'll be able to sort of pick up and learn all the little tricks that he's putting in with these cities lists. Because I think Cities of Sigmar is a wicked army. So go check out Simon and his Order Academy. That would be my shout. Got to do some work now, Rob.
Okay, good. I'm going to go raid someone really quickly for the Twitch chat. Twitch chat, you've been phenomenal. Don't forget to join me today at 6 p.m. as opposed to 7, as we'll be reacting, obviously, to the live reveals, which is going to be really fun. Thanks, Owen, to you. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Big love to you. Look after yourselves, and we'll see you soon. Have a nice day.